The village of St. Leontius rested atop a craggy hill, its cobblestone streets winding in uneven patterns, flanked by cottages with thatched roofs and shuttered windows. A heavy fog descended each evening, rolling from the surrounding moorlands to drape over the village like a damp, spectral blanket. At the heart of the village rose the old church, its stone walls darkened by centuries, and its bell tower looming above all. The bell itself had been cast long before most villagers were born, forged in a distant city by hands lost to history. It was said to carry a sound unlike any other, a toll that lingered, echoing not only across the valley, but across time itself. It was the winter of 1893 when Father Ambrose Valden arrived in St. Leontius. A scholar of both theology and the occult, he had traveled extensively, documenting relics and legends. Word of the bell had reached him through scattered parish records, vague letters from clergy, and obscure mentions in dusty manuscripts. Each account whispered of the bell's unusual nature, how it tolled when no hand struck it, how its sound was heard even miles from the church, and how those who listened too long sometimes vanished without trace. Father Ambrose's first night in the village was unnerving. The fog thickened as he walked along the cobblestones, carrying only a lantern that cast trembling light on the ancient walls. The church tower rose above him, a silhouette against the silver glow of the moon. A distant toll echoed faintly across the moor, though he knew the bell had not been rung. Its sound was deliberate, resonant and impossibly mournful, vibrating in the bones like the faint hum of a distant drum. The villagers were hesitant to speak of the bell. When Ambrose inquired, an old woman whispered from behind her curtained window, "Do not linger near it at night. The bell sees and listens, and sometimes it takes." He dismissed the warning at first, attributing it to superstition, but curiosity gnawed at him. Each day he wandered the churchyard, examining the tower, the heavy wooden doors and the inscriptions carved into the stone. There were dates, names and symbols, faint and worn, almost imperceptible beneath layers of moss. Some carvings depicted the bell itself, ringing in a storm, figures writhing below it, faces etched in terror. On the third evening, Ambrose observed a strange phenomenon. As the wind blew across the moor carrying mist and cold air, the bell tolled. Though no hand struck it, no rope moved, no sound should have arisen. Yet the resonance was unmistakable, vibrating through the walls, the ground, and his very skull. The fog thickened unnaturally around the tower, curling into shapes that suggested faces, shadows, and hands reaching out. He ascended the spiral staircase of the bell tower, lantern in hand. Each step groaned under his weight, echoing against the stone. The bell chamber was immense, dark and cold, the air heavy with the scent of damp metal and centuries of neglect. The bell hung suspended, a massive shape of darkened bronze. Its surface was pitted, etched with strange symbols that seemed to shift when he looked away. He approached it trembling, his hand brushing the cold metal. The room seemed to pulse, a slow, deliberate heartbeat in rhythm with the distant tolls. That night, Ambrose dreamed. He wandered through the churchyard, but the graves shifted beneath his feet, the inscriptions changing, revealing names and dates he did not recognize. Figures appeared, villagers from centuries past, their faces pale, eyes hollow, mouths moving in silent anguish. He heard whispers, a chorus of warnings. "Do not ring it. Do not awaken it." And then the bell tolled. Its sound was a wave that pushed him backward across time, across centuries. He glimpsed its creation, a blacksmith forging the bell by candlelight, chanting in a language long forgotten, eyes wide with fanatic devotion. Flames licked the metal, shadows danced, and a figure trembled beneath the hammering, a warning he could not yet comprehend. Days turned into nights, and Ambrose became obsessed. He returned each evening, observing the bell, listening for its tolls, and noting the ways it seemed to affect the village. Villagers moved differently, shadows lingered too long, and some seemed to vanish only to reappear in impossible places. Birds circled the tower endlessly, and the wind carried faint, unearthly tones, the bell's song faint and lingering. One evening, he found a small hidden doorway behind the altar, leading to a narrow spiral staircase he had not noticed before. Compelled, he ascended into darkness. The stairs led to a chamber above the bell, a room filled with dust, spiderwebs, and the faint scent of rust. Here the bell's influence was stronger. The air vibrated with its presence, and time itself seemed slowed. Shadows of the past flickered along the walls, images of priests, villagers, and bell ringers long dead. Ambrose realized with dawning horror that the bell did not merely toll. It preserved echoes, fragments of moments, memories of those who had been near it. The fog outside thickened, and through the chamber's narrow windows, he saw the village as if suspended in another time. People repeated the same gestures endlessly. Children chasing invisible balls, men raising tools only to lower them again, women walking as though retracing steps from centuries ago. The bell tolled once more, though no one moved its rope. Its sound penetrated him, vibrating through his bones, and Ambrose felt a compulsion unlike any he had known, to listen, to understand, to follow the currents of its power. He returned to the village streets, attempting to speak with villagers, but they were reticent, fearful. One old man, a retired bell ringer, muttered, "I have heard it since boyhood. It calls, it takes." Many have answered and never returned. Some who do return are not themselves. Ambrose's obsession grew. Each night he approached the bell, studying its inscriptions, its form, the vibrations of the air when it sounded. He realized that the bell's toll was not random. It was deliberate, directed, aware. Its influence reached into the mind, bending perception, warping time, and revealing glimpses of things beyond mortal comprehension. He began to see faces in the mist, sometimes villagers, sometimes figures unknown, hovering near the tower, moving in ways that defied reason. One stormy night, lightning illuminated the tower. Ambrose ascended once more, drawn irresistibly. In the chamber above the bell, the air pulsed with energy. Shadows moved independently of their sources, and he glimpsed forms in the corner of his vision. Men and women, some crying, some reaching, all trapped in the resonance of the bell. It struck him with a sudden clarity. The bell preserved moments, memories, fragments of life, and those who lingered too long became part of it. The bell tolled angst not once, not twice, but continuously, each strike resonating across time. Ambrose felt himself stretching, his perception of hours, days, and centuries merging. Figures from the past appeared before him, echoes of previous caretakers, scholars, priests, and villagers. Their eyes were hollow, yet filled with knowledge and warning. They whispered silently, "Do not ring it. Do not awaken it fully. It listens. It remembers. It takes." Ambrose trembled, understanding now that the bell was not merely an object but a living vessel of memory and time, sentient and aware. Its tolls preserved, trapped, and watched. Those who listened too long risked becoming part of its echoes. And yet fascination and dread intertwined. He could not turn away. He was drawn to it, compelled to understand, to touch, to witness. The fog thickened outside. The village seemed suspended in a suspended reality. Time repeated itself. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, and figures moved in impossible loops. Ambrose felt the first true brush of the bell's curse, a subtle pull on his mind, a stretching of consciousness, an awareness of centuries overlapping within him. He knew that each step closer brought him deeper into danger, and yet he climbed the staircase again, lantern trembling in hand, heart hammering with both terror and desire. The bell waited, silent and patient, its surface gleaming faintly in the lantern light, inscriptions shifting subtly as if alive. And in the distance a single toll rang, not struck by hand, not moved by rope, but sounding nonetheless. It echoed across the moor, the village, and Ambrose's mind. The air seemed to vibrate. The fog swirled into faces, and the shadow of centuries reached for him. He stepped closer. Father Ambrose's steps faltered as he ascended the spiral staircase to the bell chamber. The fog outside thickened into an almost physical wall, curling around the tower as if it were alive, pressing in on the stones, the windows, and his body. His lantern trembled in his hand, its light flickering like a heartbeat in the gloom. The bell above awaited silently, dark bronze glinting faintly in the lantern's glow, its inscriptions shifting subtly as though aware of him. The first toll struck without warning. The sound rolled across the village, deep, resonant, vibrating through stone, earth, and bone. Ambrose froze, feeling it not only in his ears but in his chest, stomach, and skull. Shadows in the corners of the chamber stretched unnaturally, bending contrary to the lantern's light. The air pulsed with a rhythm older than the church, older than the village, older than any man alive. The bell's tolls continued, overlapping and multiplying. Each strike carried visions, moments from centuries past, figures he had never met, villagers, priests, bell ringers, scholars, all preserved in the bell's memory. Faces stared at him, pale, hollow-eyed, mouths moving without sound, warning, pleading, or simply observing. Ambrose felt a compulsion to respond, to understand, yet his voice faltered. He was no longer merely a man standing in a bell tower. He was a witness to centuries of preserved life, a spectator trapped between sound and memory. Time began to unravel. Seconds stretched into minutes, minutes into hours, and hours collapsed into centuries. Ambrose saw the bells forging, long before St. Leontius was a village. A blacksmith in a candle-lit workshop, hammering bronze with frantic devotion, chanting words in a language lost to memory. Flames licked the metal, casting dancing shadows that seemed to reach out and claw at the walls. Figures in anguish stood below the forge, faces twisted in terror, shadows of lives the bell would forever contain. The bell pulsed with life. Its surface shimmered, inscriptions rippling like water. Ambrose reached out, hand trembling, brushing the cold metal. The chamber dissolved around him, replaced by an endless corridor of sound, shadow, and memory. He was everywhere and nowhere, a spectator in the cathedral of eternity. The faces of those lost to the bell pressed close, whispers entering his mind. Do not ring it. Do not touch it fully. It remembers and it does not forgive. And then he heard her, a figure at the edge of perception, half shadow, half light, a woman, perhaps one who had once been drawn to the bell, eyes wide and eternal, hair flowing like smoke. She did not speak aloud, but her presence carried understanding and warning. The bell's curse, she seemed to say, was not merely to preserve memory, but to ensnare the living, to claim those who dared to listen too long. Ambrose's thoughts fractured. He saw himself in multiple forms, a young scholar ascending the stairs, an older man standing in the tower decades later, a shadow vanishing into the fog, echoes of himself trapped in the bell's tolls. The river of time, of experience, of memory, pulsed with the bell's rhythm, each toll expanding the corridor of existence he now inhabited. The bell's power was irresistible. He could not leave. Even stepping back, descending the staircase, or turning away from its bronze surface failed to free him. The bell had claimed his attention, mind, and perception. Shadows moved independently, twisting, reaching, some whispering, some screaming. The fog outside was a living entity, curling through the windows, coiling around the stone, reaching toward him. Then came the visions of those who had vanished before him. Priests, villagers, travelers, scholars, all drawn by curiosity, ambition or obsession. They circled him, their faces pale, hollow, their eyes reflecting eternity. Some reached for the bell, some recoiled. Some were absorbed into its bronze surface, leaving echoes of motion and terror behind. Ambrose realized fully, the bell preserved life, yet also trapped it, folding moments into the tolls, layering centuries upon centuries of memory, frozen yet ever-present. A sudden clarity struck him. The bell did not merely toll, it judged. It was not an instrument of malice, but a sentinel, a keeper of lives, a preserver of history and warning. Each toll was a lesson, a memory, a record. Those who listened were drawn into its embrace, forced to witness, to endure, to become part of its endless song. Ambrose reached out again. His fingers brushed the cold bronze, and the chamber dissolved entirely. He was no longer in the tower, but suspended in a void of sound, shadow, and light. Echoes of lives flickered before him. A boy running along the cobbled street of St. Leontius, a priest raising a candle in the chapel, a bell ringer lifting a rope that no longer existed. Each motion was preserved, repeated endlessly, overlapping with the next. Ambrose's mind stretched across centuries, experiencing moments he had never lived, and he understood fully the weight of the bell's curse. The woman appeared again. Closer, her presence calm yet overwhelming. "You see now," she said in thought, "what the bell preserves. You are part of its tolls, a witness among witnesses, a memory among memories. You will endure, observe, and carry what others cannot comprehend." Ambrose felt himself unravel and reassemble, stretched across time and consciousness. Shadows moved with independent thought. Echoes of villagers and travelers interacted with the fragments of his mind. The bell tolled continuously, each strike pulling him deeper into its eternal rhythm. He understood that he was no longer merely alive. He had become part of the bell itself, a sentinel, a witness, a guardian of moments that could never pass freely. Outside, the village remained unaware. The fog drifted, curling around the cottages and church, softening the edges of reality. Travelers who passed the church at night reported hearing a bell that rang when no rope was moved, that told through the fog in impossible patterns. Some glimpsed a figure in the tower pacing silently, a man in old-fashioned robes, pale-eyed and still. Others swore they heard whispers, faint but unmistakable, carried on the wind warnings, knowledge, and the echo of centuries. Ambrose Hartman, now part of the bell's legacy, moved among the echoes. A man both present and absent, stretched across centuries of preserved memory. He watched the tolls, observed the shadows, and carried the weight of those who had come before, unable to leave, unable to rest, a sentinel of St. Leontius. The bell tolled once more, deep and resonant. The fog swirled, shadows twisted, and the air pulsed with life beyond comprehension. And in that toll, all of St. Leontius, all who had listened, all who had vanished, and the scholar himself, existed simultaneously, preserved in the sound, caught in the rhythm of bronze, forever part of the eternal story of the bell. Eternal story of the